Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. As today we continue seeking the fate of the local populace. What's eating the people of Santiel's pride? Current signs kind of point towards each other, but there are also Drukhari involved, so maybe we'll give them the benefit of the doubt until we've found out more. That said, let's get back to it. Or, the door could immediately be blocked. I guess that's also a possibility. Yeah, I guess that probably leads back out to the chunk of ice we saw out front. Slightly anticlimactic, but
I always have a backup plan.
That's fine. We'll just go back out the way we came. We actually have another platform out here we have to investigate anyway. Should be,
Compared to the naval service, that was barely a challenge.
Just over yonder. Yeah, literally, right back here. Then it just seems to be top right. Oh, okay, so that's the other side of the blocked door. Gotcha. I was thinking it was the one with the frozen priests. Also another nod to the mysterious feast. And a lore object, gold-framed data slate. Jervis, may the immortal Emperor guard you with his grace. I have done everything I possibly could. Grab Anjet and Jolanta and flee this cursed world as soon as possible. I left a writ of passage and some savings in our secret cache at the Spire of Pride, under one of the wanted posters. May the Master of Mankind bless Acticus for his assistance. I still have unfinished business at the department, so we will reunite on footfall. Your loving brother, Lamprecht von Grotten. Not sure if we've seen any of these names before. Acticus sounds familiar. I think our big takeaway here, though, is a stash beneath wanted posters. Though I don't think we've seen any wanted posters here either. Let me double check those names real quick. Victa, Brigenda, Geoffrey, I.L. Writ of passage for the Pulchrimus family, signed by Acticus. So that is the only name that matches up. Might as well punch this out while we're here. I mean, I'm assuming it leads back into the cathedral, but we should double check. Yep, that's the cathedral. Should have a bunch of bodies over here arrayed around a bound statue of the Emperor. Interesting. Okay. Right, so that was just an alternate means of passing through the internal location. I guess had we come in on this side, which was entirely possible, it would have spit us out next to the Medusa a little farther along. Though we did find out about a potential cache, so it was still worth our time to go up there. Now, we just have to keep an eye out for wanted posters. That's not a wanted poster. That's like propaganda. Alright, guess we're headed northeast.
You do not have to hide the ashy shadows of loneliness behind swirls of bright colors, Ulfar.
I respect your gift, Guide to the Soul Sea. But you should save your sorcery for someone else.
Aw, poor Ulfar. The lone wolf. Somebody scribbled a few words on top of the propaganda poster. Level 5A, Block C. Cheap. Okay. I guess we'll keep an eye out for level 5A. A faded inscription states the gate leads to the temple quarter, but the rusted mechanisms and seals on the locks reveal this entrance hasn't seen any use for many years. Oh, interesting. Curious for a planet that was supposedly just celebrating some grand imperial festival, or feast, rather, just before the sun went out.
Is there money to be made?
Where'd those rocks come from? Ah, and we're on the other side of the broken bridge. Okay. Lost data slate. Rejoice, for in 10 turns the immortal emperor will bestow his grace upon us and embrace our brothers and sisters so they can serve him on holy terra. The celestial burial ceremony will commence at dawn, in full accordance with tradition. Remember to pay the fee so your loved ones do not have to wait for the next cycle before they too can join the Emperor. Additionally, on this holy day, the number of work hours will be reduced by 1, so the blessed denizens may take part in the solemn march from the Emperor's Spire to the Spire of Stillness. Sure.
Rise to the top, or get left in the dust.
The flying Xeno device emits an unnatural light. Strange forces are making it float freely in the air. Enemies ahead. Frozen in a huddled pose, the corpse stares at his icy, shattered limbs in disbelief. Alright, so what are we looking at here? Honestly, nothing all that concerning. Yeah, take him out.
You should have thought twice before trusting me.
The power to eradicate thy enemies. I'll revel in this massacre.
That's nice. Okay, so 2 Blade Masters off right. A rack and 3 more straight ahead. We'll get Abby and Cass top of stairs. Ulfar off right to block the Blade Masters. Kibbs and Pask positioned to support in either direction as need be. Cass up first. Reel him in. Nice. And position within 2 of at least 2. Couple more tucked in back there, no big deal.
If I may.
That should count, right? Oh, it did not. Okay. Right, Blade Master 2 diagonal. I really figured that would count, but apparently... Well, good to find that out now, as opposed to during a more serious fight. Task up next, so we'll just have him pick up the slack. And here we go. Let's lay down some cover. Oh, wow. That's funny. My goodness, yeah, these poor guys don't stand a chance.
You don't frighten me.
Hang in there, Cass. I gotcha. Wolfar, lay down fire. Man, you guys are barely even trying. Ah, but we do have traps. Honestly, that's probably the most dangerous thing on the battlefield right now. Aside from us.
Feel the icy bite of death!
Abby up next. Let's clear our flank. Bonk.
Target well struck.
I'll show you the real pain.
Oh, come on, man. Alright, fine. Yeah, that looked painful.
No matter the cost.
Anyway, let's wrap this up.
One fewer target.
I refuse.
Tried and tested tactics are the best ones.
Ooh. Just out of range.
Victory is imminent.
Well, that's not going to save you. Kib's up next, so... Let's dance. Just mind the step. Dance, 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 dance. Hibbity hop.
You call this a strike?
No, that was just the setup. This is a strike. What, nothing to say about that one? Weird, I can't imagine why. Okay, let's sweep for clues. I imagine we've got another area transition tucked in here somewhere. The drain pipe over there must be a shortcut back down for after. Somebody tried to make a sculpture by draping a body with artfully frozen intestines, but gave up halfway. Yeah, probably just didn't have enough guts to see it through. A shapeless mass of crooked bodies sticks up in the middle of the camp, bound by a single spiked chain. Ooh, wanted posters. That's got to be our stash. Freeloading is a straight route to the Underhive. Okay. I mean, not exactly what I was hoping for, but sure. Wait, also, no... Where do we go from here? How do we even interact with that pipe? We've got the cathedral, but there was clearly nothing else to do in there. Right? This can't be it. There has to be something else. I mean... Hold on, let me go grab that other... Maybe that just happened to have the one thing we need to advance.
Always keep your eye on the prize.
And that's a big no. That is just a trivial amount of cargo. Wow, so what are we missing here? It definitely feels like there should be more here. We've got Drukhari on site with mind-controlling parasites. We've got hints of an Imperial-inspired cannibal cult. We've got, One sec. Let me canvas the map. We must have missed something. And we are back. Yes, it does turn out we missed this. This is our wanted poster stash. Just off to the left of the pile of frozen priests. An augmented old man with insane eyes stares out at you from the poster. The caption below reads, "Wanted for idolatry." And then our stash is essentially just a bunch of high-value trade goods. No writ of travel or lore objects. And then, aside from that, there was one other item of note, or at least some minor note, which is this. Shuttle number 901555, which is, in fact, the same shuttle mentioned in the writ of passage we already found. Well, minus the L. Which certainly bodes poorly for the Pulchrimus family, though we probably could have guessed that much from the frozen corpse we found on the way in.
I always keep my options open.
But then beyond that, apparently, in poking around a bit, the reason it doesn't feel like we're done here is because apparently there's a whole dungeon under this place that was cut before launch. In my very brief research, apparently Santiel's Pride was originally intended to be one of the players' planets. The one managed by the Sourback family, who otherwise don't have a planet, so that does make sense. It was apparently supposed to pop up back in Act 2 as part of the whole setup for your Protectorate. It also would have served as an early encounter with the Drukhari, as well as Tervantius, apparently, and would have had a whole subplot about the increasingly desperate survivors turning to cannibalism to survive, much to the Drukhari's amusement. But yeah, apparently all of that got cut out during Alpha, so they just salvaged, I guess, what was finished, and repurposed it as one of Korda's planets instead. Though obviously there's still some pretty rough edges, since, I mean, it felt pretty obvious there was supposed to be more that we just inexplicably weren't seeing. I mean, don't get me wrong, on the one hand, I'm glad they still ended up using at least some of it. I'd rather have it than not, but man, that did not make for a satisfying payoff for our investigation. I was all hopped up to solve the mystery of Santiel's Pride, only to find that apparently it is unsolvable, because you simply cannot progress to the next area. Not without Toybox, anyway. And even then, apparently what's down there is largely unfinished. Enough to give you an idea of what was planned, but not enough to actually finish it. And definitely not something you'd want to risk your save games over. So, I guess, as much as I hate to say it, we're done here. We'll just set our new colony projects and move on. Though, who knows, maybe they'll add the rest of it in at some point later down the line. Perhaps with Lex Imperialis. Ooh, and speaking of the Sourbacks, let's go with Call to Arms. It is time for the Dargonis nobility to forget their feuds and take up arms in defense of their native world. Sounds good to me. Those guys really could use some better direction. They've got way too much idle time on their hands. And I guess we push on. Oh, but we did just pull a big pile of cargo, so one sec, let me run by Danrock real quick. I'll cash in some cargo, see if we can net some new gear. One sec. And we are indeed back, with our reputation once more incrementally improved, including maxing out our rep with the Kaspolika, who apparently do have the lowest cap of all the factions, which is interesting. Sadly, that doesn't really net us much of note. We pull the Staff of Shock and Awe, a halfway decent upgrade for Idira, the Shadow Guide Cloak, which automatically makes the wearer the lowest priority target as long as they are not adjacent to anyone. A high-end Drukhari Splinter Rifle, which we're not really built to make use of. Armor-piercing ammo, which strips deflection on single-shot and deadeye shot attacks. Not terrible, but also not super competitive with a lot of the other gear we've currently got kitted. And finally, our ultimate prize, the Reinforced Voidsman Armor, which grants very conditional crit immunity. I've got to say, kind of underwhelming for an end cap item. Though I think it's also pretty clear that's not really designed for a range-based build like ours. Fortunately, the Imperial Navy came in clutch with a couple of actual solid upgrades. The Triple Shield Array, and a Dorsal Mount Melt-A-Bomb Mortar, which at a glance is a full 25% boost on the damage potential of our current Godsbane, with an internal fire chaser. So those at least are both, I think, immediate equips. Plus that Staff of Shock and Awe for Idira. I think she's still rocking a Tier 2 Lightning Staff from, like, Act 2. Oh, yeah, that's a huge step up. Sadly, we don't have her in our active party these days, but That will at least come in handy for a personal quest. As for the AP ammo, kind of tempting. I'm just not really sure where we'd fit it in. We're already pretty stacked with high-end accessories. I'll mull on it for a bit, but for now, we move on. Oh, I will say, though, knowing what I know now about the colonies and the reputation caps and everything, I definitely do wish I'd rebalanced my early expenditures and put more towards the Drusians. They are, weirdly, the ones that are the hardest to raise, because they require a lot of cargo you only really see a lot of during the early acts. Whereas Kaspolika and the Explorators are actually incredibly easy, because you can effectively set yourself up to get infinite Mechanicus cargo. But, you know, given that at this stage I'm not really sure we're going to get enough cargo to bump up high enough for that last Drusian project, I think we're going to give up on Sky Barrier, especially since, I mean, at this stage I think it's safe to say we really don't need that Explorator rep. Though it would have been nice to get this other stuff. But, you know, I'll take Sacrament of Light as a consolation prize. I think that's one of the best engines in the game. Not to mention a boatload of mechanisms that'll likely give us more than enough for the rest of the campaign. So yeah, let's roll with this one. Euphrates II is lost, and the Adeptus Mechanicus now seek new citadels for their hallowed production lines. Kiava Gamma can become a sacred assembly site for plasma drives endowed with the Emperor's grace. Neat. And now, as for our next move, I did consider possibly hitting a few more rumor zones, but I think, ultimately, there's not much point in doing exploration without extractiums, and the only place I can think of to find them is Footfall. So, I think that's gotta be our next goal, which does mean a potentially premature encounter with Incendia and possibly Kalkazar. But considering that we've still got a bunch of sealed off sectors, including ones in Korda space, I think we'll be okay. But I guess we'll see. No event. Quick spot check on colonies. Nice. Call to arms complete. Security bump, people. And familial power armor, which is our first set of power armor. At a glance, it looks decent, but honestly, I don't feel like it's all that competitive with what we've currently got. You know, I think the armor, for example, is slightly higher than what's on Abelard, but Abby's current armor also gives him 19 deflection. Might be an upgrade for Pask, but the other downside is, of course, that because it's power armor, not heavy armor, it requires its own separate perk that we don't yet have. So I think we'll just toss that in storage for now and possibly consider it for later. As for our next project on Dragonus, no real question there. We've only got one left. No cost, decent reward, kind of a no-brainer. The date for the payment of the tithe approaches. However, by making use of the corrupt practices of the Administratum, one could find a way to keep both the Psychers and the thrones. Hey, look at that. Our investment in the local Administratum already paying off. You'll love to see it. Oop. Your Lordship, a cryptic message arrived from Kiava Gamma. The Fabricator Sensor reports that they have beheld the eye of the divine. I requested details from your less devout servants, and they clarified that the inquest group, which has been investigating the many inexplicable events that have taken place on the planet, followed a trail of mysterious binaric harmonics and came upon an ancient and abandoned data complex. It is connected to the Manufactorum by a maze of communication lines and contains a gargantuan data loom. The mechanism's markings show that its designation, or I should say its rather menacing name, is Null Caliph. Null Khalif is immersed in sacred astrogational calculation and has shown no inclination to make contact. The tech priests that connected to it were punished for the intrusion with a lethal ejection of their motive force. The only thing they managed to find out is that the spirit of the data loom is not bound with the vows of compliance that would normally restrain a machine spirit of such power. This astoundingly mighty entity bows to no one, driven only by its own aims. Interesting. Sounds like another Nomos situation. What do we know about this abandoned facility? Another one of Delphine's? It is an ancient production facility, far older than the colony itself. Some assembly lines bear the marks of the Cognizant's fleet. Perhaps the first explorators who came to the Coronis Expanse set up a station on the yet uninhabited planet. The station was then consumed by the developing industrial colony and eventually forgotten. It is possible that whatever plans they had for it were so clandestine that its creator's death ended up casting it into oblivion.
The catalog contains no data to support this hypothesis. It does, however, contain the designation Null Khalif. The Null Khalif Initiative is a project of the fabled Archmagos Opticon 107, whose function was the initial exploration of the Coronis Expanse. All information on this project was removed from the catalog, as per the Fleet Conclave's decree, following Permissibility Hearing 16. By that same decree, Archmagos Opticon 107 was stripped of his title as the Conclave's Prolocutor Supremus.
Well, that's slightly concerning, but also very intriguing. What exactly is this thing? A sacred computational mechanism of great power. Its body is vast, and the wisdom and mettle of its machine spirit would befit an imperial titan. Machines of such might and splendor are kept carefully hidden from the eyes of the laity and worshipped on certain planets as great Logis oracles, sacred angels of the Omnissiah, or demigods. Null Khalif's structure includes remarkable pieces of archaeotech, parts of it extending far throughout Kiaba Gamma, like a void kraken's tentacles. We now know where the warp transmitter modified by Cubus Delphine came from. It must have been part of this mechanism. So wait, was it working with Cubus, or... The data angels that we encountered earlier were born of its cogitational might. Full of vigor, they soar around its computational aura, which radiates into the new sphere. Their response to our presence has been favorable thus far. Okay, well, I guess that answers that. Because your servants have been monitoring the execution of Procedure 0C, they rather boldly believe that they have gained some insight into certain patterns of its super calculation. They claim that they could help achieve an understanding with Null Khalif, or defeat it in battle. Well, tell me, do we have any idea what it's trying to super calculate? All we have is a hypothesis, according to which Null Khalif can see into the warp, similar to a navigator. Any interaction between technology and the warp is, as you are well aware, kept under the careful supervision of the Adeptus Mechanicus, so you can imagine just how unique this mechanism is. Yeah, I mean, I guess that does kind of track considering the derivative technologies that Delphine was apparently experimenting with. According to the Magi, it can calculate routes through the Immaterium without rest or fear of corruption, given the fact that it has no human soul. They claim that its power is comparable to that of a Novator of the Navigator House. Apparently, Procedure 0C was initiated by this mechanism to integrate Magi with high psychic potential in order to expand its own computational capacity. Currently, its calculations, operating at full capacity, are approaching completion. We assume the perfect execution of Procedure 0C contributed to this. Have we succeeded at making any sort of contact with it? The Great Calculator seems indifferent to mortals. It has expressed a lack of desire to interact with us or destroy us. The tech priests reached out to Null Khalif once more using certain excerpts from the dictates of Procedure 0C, and the machine's reaction was benign. It showed no hostility. Oh, interesting. I wonder if it would have reacted more negatively had we chosen other options during earlier colony events.
The great machine spirit that identifies itself as Null Khalif bears potential as a valuable ally, one that could replace the need for navigators comprised of fallible flesh. We must make contact with this holy entity, for to do so is to honor the Omnissiah's tenets. That the tech priests who had the audacity to disturb Null Khalif were deprived of their motive force is a testament to the might of its data voice. I hold the knowledge to create a mediator that could interface with the fearsome machine spirit and ease the burden of its revelations on unprepared minds.
I mean, yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. If it stares into the warp, then it's vulnerable to attacks from the warp. Never thought I'd ever suggest something like this, but if we want to make that machine obey us, we should assault it through the immaterium. No, I think we'll pass on that, but thanks. A navigator data loom? This abomination makes a mockery of every navigator house's legacy. The very fact of its existence is profoundly sickening and vile. Null Khalif must be destroyed post-haste. Allow me to send word to the other navigator houses. They will waste no time in dispatching their forces to destroy this monstrosity. Oh, Cassie, I hate saying no to you, but I really don't see us doing that either. I do get the fear of becoming obsolete, though. So if we do Pask's thing, we get +1 complacency and Cogni Simulacrum EF Ultima Octodecimum. +25 logic. Also grants Solve Simulacrum, a 3 action point ability that triggers a logic test for the wielder at -167 penalty. On success, Solve Simulacrum is removed, the Cogni Simulacrum is destroyed, and the wearer permanently gains the Paradox Solved feature. Character can use their heroic act regardless of their momentum without spending momentum. Holy moly. Wait, so like, if we use this device successfully, we would permanently gain the ability to just immediately burn off our heroic actions every fight? That's pretty bonkers. I mean, yeah, sure, the massive logic test would normally pose a hurdle for most players, I imagine, but we just so happen to have a mighty computer brain, so that check would actually be pretty trivial. I think we'd still have over 100 points in logic, even with that penalty, especially with the +25 mod from the Cogni Simulacrum Octodecimum itself. I mean, that's probably the option we're going to go with regardless, but I'm going to have to read up on that and make sure that works the way I'm interpreting it. But, you know, we'll go through the motions, we'll see what our other potential options are. Forcing it into submission is just a flat +1 security. And then just outright destroying it would get us Null Khalif's Cogitation boards. +5 torpedo speed, so yeah, I mean, it's really no contest. Though it does help that this is also absolutely a Valen thing to do. We've already embraced Nomos, might as well bring Null Khalif into the fold. All right, Pask. I'll let you take point on this one. Do what you can to bring Null Khalif on board. For the good of the Protectorate, of course.
Request approved. Transferring revelations on the Mediator's creation.
Magos Pascal Hanuman imparted his secrets to the Omnissiah's servants on Kiava Gamma, allowing them to assemble a mediator device that softened Null Khalif's voice. The Magi then prayed to the mighty machine spirit, humbly asking it to make an alliance with the rogue trader and share its mysteries. And Null Khalif answered, halting its sacred calculation. It bestowed its favor upon the supplicants, with its tireless sun-blinking eye observing the warp currents. Many a traveler have been saved from peril. Fantastic. Sounds like that worked out great. Though I suppose we'll have to wait till Act 5 to see if there's any further twists. I do get the distinct impression that we have at least one more full round of colony projects per planet, with, I assume, associated events. But, you know, for now at least, it does seem like things are working out pretty nicely. Which leaves us with this one last optional project undone. Though sadly we do not have the phlogiston to spare. But I think we do... Okay, no, we've still got projects in progress. Let's get a gander at that new octodecimum. Octodecimum. Yeah, weird. It's like a device. If I am reading that correctly, it's a single charge device that, when successfully used, permanently grants the listed ability, which is pretty fantastic, but hold on, let me see if I can actually use it now. Nope, we cannot. Apparently we do have to use it in combat, so fair enough, I suppose. I look forward to our next fight, so I can hopefully bank a pretty fantastic new power. Giant snakes. We've seen that one before. Standard warped hissy fit. And colony event on Janus. Let's see what we got. Lord Captain, an Ordo Xenos punitive unit led by acolyte Lynette Zhu has arrived on Janus. The Inquisition forces have already taken control of the Governor's Palace and intend to inquire into the recent anomalies on Janus. Heinrichs, why was I not warned of this? I thought we had an understanding with Calcazar. I am surprised they have informed us of their arrival at all. It demonstrates a semblance of trust. Great, well, I'm flattered. Danrock, do we know how much they've dug into thus far? The initial interrogations have set Lynette Zhu on the tracks of the wretches toward the anomalous region, but her people continue to dig deeper, so to speak. But they don't seem to know about Moran or the Eldar Enclave just yet. Well, what say my advisors? Heinrichs, I imagine I can already guess. Cooperating with the Inquisition would do us more good than trying to hide the current misfortunes of the colony. I can send them a message to keep us informed about the interrogation. As a favor. If only we could throw them a bone and let them find the evidence they want, one that we can get by without. The rest would be concealed away from their inquisitive eyes. Like a sand lizard shedding its tail, sometimes one must cede the battle to win the war. Well, you know, Jai, that would probably be my go-to if asking you hadn't apparently removed it as an option. because we just went from 3 potential options to 2. Either letting them proceed or expelling them from my world entirely, which seems like something that would cause more problems than it would really solve. Allowing them to proceed would grant us the hexagrammic grace, a modest skill boost item, not super useful for our current crew. But honestly, I don't think we have much choice here. The other option is just downright awful. Alright, Heinrichs, I guess keep tabs on them. At the very least, give me a heads up if they stumble onto something overtly problematic. Who knows, maybe they'll actually find something useful. To serve Janus and the von Valancius dynasty. After Lady Zhu had set up her headquarters at the governor's palace, she began to investigate the situation on Janus. All those feeling guilt for their crimes before the Emperor could only stay silent and pray. During her investigation, Lady Zhu was able to establish that the genetic changes in the wretches' bodies were caused by mysterious substances secreted into the water by xeno-obelisks. These substances did not contaminate the water until recently, as shown by the analysis of the Magos biologists. The same xeno-obelisks appear to be linked by a chain of energy communications, also serving as sources of unknown radiation that seem to have caused the outbreak of contaminated growth in the currently uncontrolled sector of the planet. This also seems to be causing the appearance of the mysterious phantoms. According to Lady Zhu's theory, there may be some sort of ancient mechanical construction on Janus that has awakened from its slumber. It is possible that the anomalies occurring on the planet are merely the side effects of the blasphemous machine trying to start itself. Okay, yeah, I mean, she's not wrong. We already kind of sort of heard that from Moran as well. The mysterious devices inside the Leviathan are definitely doing something, but even the Aldari themselves seem mystified as to exactly what. Also, Great Fire complete, provisions banked, and slot opened up, though honestly, neither of these options are all that appealing. Payment in organs especially, that would tank our already meager complacency. Scriptorum schools makes more sense from Valen's, narrative perspective. But there's, well, I mean, it would get us people. Though we're doing pretty well in that regard. Let's have a quick peek at our rank 5s. Shelter. Xenovivisectory. Or Pleasure World. Shelter. Janus's orbit is swarming with a fleet of refugees. By turning the entire world into an enormous staging point, the rogue trader will save billions of lives. Which, I mean, I've got to say, as an adherent to benevolencia, that does seem very much Valen's style. Even if the actual reward itself is pretty tame. Minor damage boost on healed allies. Xenovivisectory. Refugees can be utilized as a workforce for the construction of a grand xenovivisectory for the study of Inhumans. All witnesses will be disposed of. Alright, well, just narratively that kind of immediately rules that one out, which is definitely a shame because that is probably the most useful of the 3 potential rewards. Or Pleasure World. Welcoming the commoners would be pointless, but the rogue trader could offer refuge to the aristocrats, and turn Janus into a world of blessed respite for them, gaining powerful allies as a result. Relatively tame cost. Primarily rewards us with profit factor, which we don't really need. as well as Watcher from Above, fairly high-end single-hand sword, solid defensive bonuses, also nerfs enemies on hit, which would be a good get for Abby, but I mean, of our three options here, just from a thematic standpoint, I feel like we've probably got to go with this one. Valen might lose sight of the bigger picture from time to time, but he still very much tries to be a man of the people when the opportunity presents. Holy Prophet complete, which just leaves tier 5s on Dargonis. Let's get a gander. Schola Progenium, a new entry in the annals of Dargonis. The fate of millions of orphans whose parents fell in the fire that gripped the expanse. Alright, well, I mean, come on now. I already did one good deed. That would net us Loyalist Garb, high-end light armor, with very fiddly defensive bonuses. Plus Protectorate wide boosts we don't really need. I think we're already capped out on efficiency and security for every planet. Though we would get another boatload of people. More than I really think we know what to do with at this point. Yeah, I mean, if that gave us complacency, it would be a no-brainer, but let's see what else we've got on tap. Librarium. Since Dargonis is an educated world, it is the right place to establish a secret librarium, where scholars of the arcane will be free to share their knowledge and delve into the forbidden. Grants Echo of Victory. Whenever the wearer attacks any target in a 5-cell radius with a ranged weapon, the attack deals 21% more damage. Not ideal with a long-range sniper rifle, but still potentially useful. Though the profit factor and cast Blake and Rep are not. So it really would just be the Echo of Victory. Society of Cartographers. The bravest captains will unite under the rogue trader's aegis. Upon being offered invaluable charts and other assistance with their expeditions, the Voidfarers will repay the favor with goodwill and trophies. And yes, this is the project I had my eye on. This one not only grants rep with a faction we actually need, but also a boatload of rarer resources, some of which we are very thin on. Plus, I suppose, the Woebringer, which is a unique Drukari Clave with an optional shove attack. I mean, that's kind of fun. Not a huge deal, but I suppose we could toss that to Cabela, perhaps? She does have those boots that cause bleed on knockback, though a 2 AP cost is pretty steep. That said, I do feel like the rest of the rewards are more than worth it. Plus, thematically, it does fit, I think, with Valen's more inquisitive, educated side. And of course, as always, better relations with the Navy means a more secure sector. Yeah, I think we're going to put the cart before the Orphs. For the good of the Protectorate. Plus, that'll let us do some of these other outstanding projects, the ones I held off on because we were short on rare resources. In fact, let's go ahead and get this one going now. Brand of the Motive Force. It is possible to utilize all of Kiava Gamma's potential by covering its surface in a huge Elect 2. The whole world will be wrapped in a grandiose Potentia coil, which grants efficiency and security, which we don't really need, but, you know, why not? We can afford it. That aside, who knows how many debilitating debuffs they might hit us with once we're into Act 5. That's it for colony projects for now. Though, you know what? Let's go ahead and knock out a few more contracts while we're at it. Yeah, we could stand to shore up our Prometheum, for example. Star Devourer. Our gargantuan explorator mass transport is returning from a long expedition. Its star hunting is taking longer than expected, and it is in desperate need of provisions, water, and air. The captain is willing to show generosity. The ship's holds are brimming with plasma batteries. Contract complete. Ooh, Xenotech, yes, let's do this one too. Pyramids of Death. A gang of daredevils is looking for a sponsor for their self-destructive foray into the jungles of the world Paranthos and the ancient Xenos pyramid located therein. Should any of them survive and return with spoils, it will be well worth the investment. You got yourself a deal. Best of luck, my friends. And I think that might be it. Yeah, we don't really need any of this other stuff. Let me just do one more quick sweep here. Right, instant completion on Kiava Gamma. Because we've got all of the planet stats above 10. Which is all the projects we can do now. But note that we do still have what does look like a full quarter of our slots empty. So that really does imply that we've got more projects waiting for us once we hit Act 5. That said, let's take that last hop to Footfall. Then I think we'll be at a good place to call it. Poised as we are for a potential incendiary encounter. Oh, spooky music. Another one we've already seen. I am curious about Cabela, though. You'd really think she would have triggered her Act 4 quest by now. Though I suppose we haven't heard anything from Cassia or Ulfar yet, either. And, yes, I think that... Oh.
Lord Captain, we have received a Vox message from Footfall. The Inquisition has declared martial law on the station due to the threat of Malleus Extremis. Docking will require special permission, and even most of the asteroids have been cordoned off. The station's custodian, Her Ladyship Incendia Corda, sends her greetings and invites your lordship to disembark at the docks with a small retinue. Her enforcers will meet you there to escort to another chamber for a private audience.
The box crackles with static, and Jai's honeyed voice fills the air. Vigdis, the salve for my heart. Forgive the intrusion, but I have important business with the rogue trader. Oh, Shireen, I simply wish to remind you about my numbskull crew who got themselves captured by some rival ashmags. Vladame is too occupied for schemes, and besides, Incendia Corda has already put him in his place, which leaves only Falco. May the Aussie tear his soul to pieces. Footfall is straight ahead, and I would rather not waste the precious sand still left in the hourglass of their lives. He threw a wrench in the works, making my trade network fall apart like a badly assembled chrono. No income, no profits, only damages, all because my right hand is chained up on one of Footfall's asteroids. How about we pay Falco a courtesy visit? I am sure your imposing visage will loosen his tongue, and maybe, just maybe, untie the hands of my crew. I mean, yeah. I've got to say, sometimes it does feel like you're more trouble than you're worth, but we are, nonetheless, business partners, and you did get me a space cat. We'll get it done. Shireen, have I ever mentioned that you are the most fragrant rosebush on the entire blossoming garden of the Coronis Expanse? No, I don't think you have, but thanks, I guess.
If this is all you have to say,
The Voxmaster unceremoniously boots Jai from the channel.
Apologies, Lord Captain. What will be your instructions?
Well, that depends. Do we have any other options? Can we take care of Jai's thing before we have this forced meeting with Incendia?
We have no options, Lord Captain. The augurs are reporting that all docking gates not watched by the enforcers are locked and rigged with explosives.
Right, well then, let's back off for a moment. I imagine things are apt to get heated once we're face-to-face with Incendia. Best to make sure we're ready to extinguish potential threats.
As you wish, Lord Captain.
Which, yes, definitely makes this a good place to call it. Since I still need to bring Jai up to snuff. Though really, much like with Heinrichs, I think I'll just kind of fake it. I'm not terribly concerned about turning her into a massive killing machine. Considering that even on max difficulty, we're still kind of just steamrolling everything we run into. That said, we'll hit the pause button for now. I'll get Jai up to snuff, make sure we're ready for this. And we will pick up here next time. As I'm sure we'll have a very pleasant chat with our esteemed associate. She does seem like the reasonable sort. I'm sure we have nothing to worry about. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Eerie V23, Revenant, Alois, Arrow Bowman, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Kazorm, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.
Compared to naval service, that was barely a challenge.